Okie dokie. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Public Practice Accountants Club on Clubhouse, where public practitioner, thought leaders, industry specialists, and accountants just like you discuss hot topics in public practice and how they go about navigating the public practice landscape around the world. So fundamentally, public practice has the same principles, dynamics, and challenges no matter where we are in the world. So we might have some different tax seasons, busy periods in legislation, but at the core, we are very much the same. So our room this morning is how to build a powerful employer brand and become the employer of choice. Tricky one. So let me introduce myself very quickly. I don't know everybody in the room this morning. So good morning. I am Linda Steffens. I always introduce myself as an accountant, an author, and an introvert. 3 things that I'm very loud and proud about. And I've been hanging around public practice now for about 30 years. Goodness gracious, time flies when you're having fun. And what I do in my everyday is I help accountants and accounting firms who already do advisory to turn it into a consistent, regular, and predictable income stream. So that's where I hang around and spend my time these days. And of course, I've got my amazing co-host with me, Kylie Baxter. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry for giving you a semi-heart attack when I rocked up 10 seconds before we're supposed to start.
Oh, look,
I don't know
live
everyone
streaming.
In the room. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. I just got carried away doing some work like I have been here. I just sort of looked at the clock and went, oh, time to log on. Anyway, sorry. I don't know everyone in the room either this morning. So good morning. I'm Kylie Baxter. I own a public practice accounting firm here on the gorgeous Gold Coast. There are 10 of us and I am currently recruiting. In fact, I feel like I've been in constant recruitment mode for the last 2 years maybe. So lots of changes. We've got a few new faces on board at the moment. So this whole employer of choice topic is a good one today. I do not profess to be an employer of choice like you'd always like to think you are, and I think we should all aim and strive for that. But no one fall over. I've actually done some research for today's topic. So
what is going on with the world?
I really felt like I needed to inform myself because, you have a vague idea about this employer of choice concept, but I think as we'll unpack, it's really subjective, Linda.
It is absolutely. And I think this, this conversation, as our conversations always can, go in any direction. So who would know where we'll end up today? But the coming together of both our minds, which have their moments from time to time. And of course, you listening to us out there, we would love for you to talk to us as well. If you've got a question or you want to take the topic in a particular direction, please post a comment. If you're out on LinkedIn or Facebook, you can post comments there and we can see them. If you're in the Clubhouse stratosphere, you've got the little chat box, which is there for you. And we would love to just say good morning or good evening to you, wherever you're tuning in from. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to say hello to everybody. And just a quick reminder, we are a CPA discussion group, so you can get your CPE and CPD points for listening in. Extra bonus. Okay, so how to build a powerful employer brand and become the employer of choice. So these days, well, probably all days, effective recruitment is no longer simply about matching applicants to jobs. It's a candidate-driven marketplace, and gone are the days of just posting a job ad and waiting for applications to come flooding into your inbox. So effective recruitment we need to think about perhaps a marketing strategy that might sit behind that. How can you appeal to the right people so that you can retain them? And there's suggestions that the way to do that is to build a powerful employer brand. So what does that even mean and where do we start? So also too, this is specifically our topic is for accountants, accountants in public practice more specifically, I suppose, but we'll probably get some fairly general comments around this as well. But that's certainly our focus for the conversation. So we've been in a talent drought or difficult to find talent for many, many years now. That's been something that the accounting industry worldwide has struggled with. And I know Kylie and I have talked about this before, the accountants having a bit of an image problem. That's probably been part of, where we've ended up today. But of course, a whole lot of other things have happened, particularly just in the last few years. And that has particularly made recruiting even tougher again, with the way people's attitudes are changing to work, with what they're looking for, with where they're wanting to spend their time. It's been tough. And Kylie, you've recognised too that obviously, you're an employer, I'm an employer. It has been really hard, regardless of what industry or business you're in.
Yeah, it has been really hard. I think, it goes without saying that anyone who has got staff has probably had some turnover, or if they're recruiting for more people, it's really difficult. What I have found over the last couple of years is prior to that, we'd put an advertisement up or whatever the story was, and we'd have lots and lots and lots of applicants. Like I'm talking, 40 plus. Part of that's possibly because we're on the Gold Coast. Lots of people think it's great fun to come and live here, which is good. But on the flip side, we're quite transient. So we get people and we lose people quite easily geographically. And then what started to happen was, I guess, COVID hit and everyone sort of locked down a little. And then after that, when we were trying to find staff, people's perceptions changed. My own perception changed about what I wanted for myself and my business. So people started wanting different arrangements, which is fine, depending on, your culture and your availability to be open to that. But also then everyone started sort of job shuffling. Like, it's quite funny, the number of stories I've heard where somebody went from this firm to this firm and that person went from that firm to that firm. It's like they literally job hopped. And I guess, for us, Gold Coast isn't that big of a market depending on the kind of firm that you want to work at. So we were really, and I'm sure you would have heard it as well, Linda, we really saw some interesting things happen. And traditionally for myself, I've had very long and loyal staff, not to say the staff would have gone no longer loyal. They served their time exceptionally well. But I think people, through no change or, fault of what was happening in the office or outside the office if you're a remote worker, people just wanted to change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's fine. I wanted to change too.
And I've been, recruiting accountants for accounting firms, not in the recruitment space, but as a practice manager, as a practice owner, and now supporting accounting firms, in those areas as a coach for a long time now. And we have seen more in what we would call the metropolitan markets, a bit more of that job shuffle go on. In regional markets, which the Gold Coast is one, you wouldn't see it that often. It didn't happen as much, but now it's happening, as you recognise. People just wanting a change. They're wanting to see what's out there.
Look, I always take issue. When people call the Gold Coast regional.
Do you? It's regional, Kylie.
We're here too. We're like an hour down the road from Brisbane. Like, we exist too. I love that.
Yeah, but we're so chilled. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But I just want to think about, what does it mean then to be an employer of choice? So, of course, I Googled this like I do everything. And an employer of choice is someone whom workers choose to work for when presented with other employment choices. So it's a conscious decision if they're either joining an organisation or deciding to stay with an organisation. And they're suggesting that it all starts with why, why are we doing this? What do we want from life? What does this look like? How does this suit this? So when I was getting prepared for this topic about an employer brand, I'm thinking, well, there's the before bit in what do you have to get ready and what's this employer brand and what do I have to understand? There's the during bit. How do you maintain the employer brand or how do you, keep going with it? And then there's the after. What can you learn as employees perhaps transition? So that's how I've looked at it, Kylie. I don't know what sort of research you've got handy there.
Yeah, I wanted a definition as well, and I was fascinated to find that it's really just about successfully attracting and retaining skilled staff by creating a great place to work.
Yes.
I thought, oh, is it like, that sounds easy. Yeah, great place to work, no problem.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
the thing that we always have to consider is perception, how other people view the workplace. You can't keep everyone happy. You know, what's good for one and amazing, and what someone thinks is a great workplace, another person will be like, no way, you know, and
me.
that exactly. And we really have to think about, oh, okay, so we're attracting personalities basically, you know, assuming, and this is a hopeful assumption, that everyone can do the base level work that you want them to do. Then it comes down to, you know, setting up your firm that will attract the right people. So if you had a firm culture that, you know, they do a lot of social events and there's a lot of, you know, camaraderie and that sort of thing, you might not be able to attract the person that just wants to go to work, do their job and come home. So you really need to think about that. But during, you know, my preparation, I looked up that definition and was a bit underwhelmed by it. Not very helpful. So I wanted to know who these employers of choice were. You know, like if you have won an award or whatever the story is, I wanted to know. So I looked up a few firms, and I'm not going to name them, but they've clearly got, you know, information about what they do and how they do things.
Interesting.
And I found it really interesting because some of these things I think a lot of firms would do in some way, shape or form, but not be loud and proud about it.
There you go.
I'll go through the list.
Okay. Tell us.
There's an Employee of the Month award.
Okay.
Now, awesome, but what if there's 4 people in your office? and you're one of them. How's that work? You know, so I liked that, and they actually say, you know, we give away movie tickets, a coffee machine, wine and beer, and gift vouchers. And I was like, oh, well, obviously I want the coffee machine. You know, that sounds like a much higher net value prize. Paid day off annually for staff anniversary day.
Oh,
really interesting. Yeah,
that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Gifts and performance-based bonuses. My personal feeling around that is people should just be paid for their performance-based. So if you're getting a bonus for it, you're probably not being paid properly. That's just me. Team morning teas to celebrate staff's birthdays. You'd be hard-pressed to find somewhere that doesn't celebrate your birthday.
That. We all love cake,
but
right?
Loud and proud.
Yes.
We all love cake.
Yes.
But loud and proud about it. Like, and it's like, oh, okay. So these are things maybe we should be thinking about when we're recruiting as well.
Yeah.
Cake, flowers, balloons to welcome new staff.
There you go.
Awesome. Great. But I wouldn't have ever thought to say that you do that, you know.
I had a manager a few years back in our firm, and she loved balloons. And if there was somebody coming into the office that was new, we had balloons. Now, again, it's because she just loved balloons so much. She just wanted any excuse to get balloons in the office, which was fine. And it clearly, you know, works well. But we weren't loud and proud about that either. So yeah, good point. It's about being loud and proud, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the next one really was interesting. Weekly team highlights of positive contributions made by the team. Again, something that I'm sure people do, like great job, or this has happened, or whatever the story is, but actually saying, hey, we do this. Yeah. And then 2 weeks additional annual leave after you've done 5 years of service at this particular firm that I was looking up. Excellent. Now, we have seen definitely as part of remuneration packages additional annual leave offered in more recent times, which is great. I found it interesting that they said after 5 years at the firm. I think that would work if you sort of got grads and undergrads in, but if seniors were coming across, that's a long time to wait before that additional 2 weeks leave compared to the person in the seat next to them. But obviously that's sort of a more loyalty bonus than anything else, which I completely understand. And I actually think that's a cracker with the right tweaks. But then they list, seriously, a lot of people listed all these things. So gone are the days when you just say, oh, paid CA, CPA or, you know, support. It's more like, and paid study leave, you know, those sorts of things have become really standard now. Above market salary, latest technology and innovations, TeamViewer, Skype.
There you go.
A laptop computer.
Mm.
I like the things that were listed. I was like, oh my goodness, like I would never think to tell people that I'll give them a laptop computer. That's just standard.
Because you do anyway. That's standard. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, even like you said, the cake at morning tea, right? We're taking that for granted. And as you said in the leader, it's about perception and it's about attracting personalities. We're not saying any of this because we think that's just run of the mill, but perhaps there's people out there that don't do any of this.
Another key one that I noticed across several firms is about parking, Linda. That one really struck home with me because that can make a massive difference when you're looking for a job. How much parking is going to cost you for a week. And even though Gold Coast is regional, the parking is still very expensive here. So you need to really consider that in your day-to-day.
Absolutely. Yet, look, parking anywhere is, an issue. Nobody... if you can park right, jump out of your car and walk right into the office within 20 or 50 meters, that's ideal, isn't it? So I think parking's a big deal anywhere. Was there any more, Kylie? What else did they have?
Heaps. Look, all the social activities were listed. So stuff that I would never think about. Like at our office, we do Melbourne Cup, we do a Christmas party plus a Christmas event, we do a half-year fun event, those sorts of things. And that's what's listed here. Christmas party, end of financial year party, Melbourne Cup event, a business night award, don't know what that means, and social events. It also even lists things like, how you've got access to professional activities. So it actually lists the professional development that they do as standard, which I found really interesting because I have noticed people are keener for that lately. My guess is that that's because it's dropped off slightly over COVID for non-COVID related things because we're all just so busy. But the really interesting one that I saw probably on, I reckon maybe 20% of websites was about charity involvement. So a lot of firms are now giving one paid day off a year to carry out charity work. However, on the flip side, when I looked into this a little bit further, it turns out that the uptake of that was exceptionally low.
Yes.
Not from desire, but from the practicality of it.
Yes.
If you offer yourself one day, and particularly a weekday, because it's a day off work, there's not a lot you can do because often the charities require some sort of onboarding or implementation process, and they're after more than just one day.
Yes.
So I think it would be a better idea to do it as a team and find something to go and contribute
and
to.
Tweak that too. I just was looking at something on our local social pages about that as well, and a businesswoman saying that she joined an organisation where they had just given 2 days up, I think a quarter or something, but they were having trouble finding charities to do that for. So I think things like that, you just need to tweak it so that, it works with what you're trying to achieve. And I think that's the whole thing. So where were they putting all of this, Kylie? If it's about being loud and proud, where was all of this?
So some of it I found on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Some of it I actually found on their webpage.
Yeah.
Some of it I found on social pages.
Yes.
And of course, I did a really deep dive into Seek and the ads that are up at the moment. And I must say, particularly on Seek, and it's a lesson for us all, including myself, when I was looking at sort of a standard run of the mill, the ones that stuck out to me were the ones where people actually spoke in real language, like we're looking for this, we're this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's great. But then the employer of choice ones where people are like, these are all the things we do. It was like, oh, my goodness, this is what they want. Yep, boring can do that. That's the job, no dramas. And this is what they offer.
What's in it for me?
With my employee eyes on, it did look really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I'd love balloons on my first day of work. No surprise, by the way, but whatever. And too bad if someone
maybe there's an extra, Well, now there's a very good point that you raise. It's all great to be loud and proud about these things. And this fits into the before, the during, and the after as how I thought about it. It's all great if this is the before stuff that you plan to do. The during, well, you got to live up to it all then, don't you? And make an effort because you create that expectation. We know this happens with clients as well. Same thing goes for our team. You create an expectation. Integrity says you've got to follow through. So
100%.
Yeah. So I think that's a biggie.
I will admit myself, we traditionally have end of financial year events. Sometimes we just still fall in a heap because we're so exhausted.
Yes.
So it's like, let's just
have an afternoon off.
Not do that. Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
So I think it's really interesting about these things. We really, in my opinion, need to think about who our ideal candidate is. In accounting, we talk a lot about who's our ideal client, how do we attract them? What services can we offer them? Really, as business owners, what we need to do now is replicate that for our staff. Who is our ideal staff member?
Yes.
How can we attract them? And how can we keep delivering to them? And obviously, that's a different situation than a client, but it's not just get people in the door anymore and pay them and that's enough.
No, that's exactly right.
And times keep changing. Sarah Lawrence is an accounting firm owner in New South Wales and runs a business called Hot Toast. And she has she calls it a diversified workforce, I think. So basically everybody works remotely.
Yes.
And she said to me recently in a panel that, it used to be easy because they would attract, people returning from mat leave or people wanting to live in remote or whatever the story is. And they used to get staff quite easily. But now everybody does that.
Yes, they were the standout. So you're right. It keeps changing. So what's the next thing? So we're having to, as a business owner, we've got to have that business hat on all of the time. The working on part needs to be happening because it's just changing so fast all of the time, whether it's our clients, our services, our technology, our technical updates, it's just everything. So it's a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
Yeah.
So the lesson there is update always.
Yes.
You really can't just
stay on top of things.
That's what we offer and that's going to be it. You have to stay on top of things.
No.
Yeah.
And the best people to talk to about this are your existing staff. What would they appreciate? What are the things they do appreciate? What would they like to see? And I mean, you can talk to them about that. I mean, you don't have to take on board everything that they say. If there's some, they want a ball pit in the middle of the office, well, that's not going to probably be doable. But, something that, might be just an upgraded coffee machine or something like that. It's the small things that often matter. But back to my before thing, it is absolutely about identifying the ideal candidate. So, and it's more than the demographic. I want an accountant, like you said, that's got this many years experience that can do this type of work. It needs to you need to dig deeper into that. What's their behavior like? What are their values like? Do they align with, clearly that you would want them to align with your values. If you don't know what your values are, then maybe we've got to take another step back and start with them. So, it's about finding that out. And then, as you said, being able to articulate and communicate that for yourself first so that it becomes ingrained in everything you do, for your team and your existing staff, and then let that flow through to your webpage, your socials, LinkedIn. Recruitment these days is very much, we've got to take a lot of our lead from marketing activities because this is going to help us to create this employer of choice or this employer brand. So you've just got to help others understand what it is that you do and take nothing for granted, as some of those examples show, Kylie, right?
Yeah, look, when I was reading through this, it gave me a lot of food for thought and I took a lot of reflection time, to be honest about it. And for me, when we think about, well, how do we become an employer of choice, or how do we get people to want to come and work for us as opposed to so-and-so down the road? I think in this way, we talk a lot about who we are and what we do. It's not the what we do, it's the who we are that people are looking for at the moment. And when I think about the staff that I have recruited recently, that's what I've cared about too. I have to, you do your checks and blah, 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 but you assume they can do the underlying job that you're hiring them for, whether that be client service or, junior or senior accountant even. It's more about, well, who are you? We had a fail recently as not a non-starter, but a not long enough starter
yes.
In client service, and super capable at the job, really lovely person, great, but didn't suit our culture as far as we're a relationship-based firm. We talk to our clients, get to know them, that sort of thing. And this particular person was wonderful, but believed in a more stringent way of dealing with people, as in a thank you for your call and I'll put you straight through.
Yes.
So what ended up happening was people stopped calling the office and they're calling my mobile. I can't deal with that.
Oh, no. Well, that's not the outcome we want at all.
No. So you need to really think, and that's seriously just a culture fit, nothing else other than just culture. And we need to think about that, who are we recruiting, and do they fit with our mission and values? So I know we spoke about this a few weeks ago, and I do think it's a topic that we need to go through, but it's really hard to communicate to people who you are, and I'm talking about staff, but also for even us as employers to identify what we want. If we're not super clear on mission and values, you might have the strongest culture in the world, but have not clearly defined your mission and values. If you've got a really strong culture, it makes mission and values super, super easy. Well, easier. But we really need to be telling people in an upfront way who we are, and sometimes it still doesn't work out, but at least you've given it a shot.
That's exactly right. You've got to give it a shot. You've got to try. And, it's just getting started. It's not going to be perfect. When I always start out with doing strategic foundations, visions, missions, values, those sorts of things for any firm, I always make sure that I say, look, the first one always comes out a bit clunky. It doesn't always look right. We mightn't even get a fully formed one at the end of this, but we've made a start. And it's always a work in progress because, again, you highlighted before, Kylie, things change and they're changing quite quickly. So who's to say a mission that you absolutely love right now and today doesn't change within the next 8 months because something major's gone on with either you, your team, what the industry looks like. So if you haven't started with that or don't have that, really important to go down that line, because out of that will fall out the ability to be able to put your ideal candidate together. Okay, so we've got the ideal candidate. We know what we're willing to offer. We're ready to be a bit loud and proud about this. What do we then need to do, I suppose? And I'm looking at this as the during part, and the first thing when I was researching this, it said to just keep an eye on your competitors, to network, to have a look at what's on websites. I suppose very similar to what you just did, Kylie. Look at what's on Seek and what's going up on ads, just to keep your finger on the pulse. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. You really want to be in the market basically yourself so that you know what's going on. And that comes back to our point about constantly reassess, which is super important. There's actually an employer of choice framework, which I thought was really interesting.
We love frameworks.
The Australian Business Awards have an employer of choice and they provide this framework. I won't go through it, but definitely do a Google on that one, because it goes through all of the different things that you need to do. And interestingly, establishing as an employer of choice starts with the pursuit of vision, mission, values, and strategy. So I think that's a really good place to start if you are thinking, well, how do we do this?
And look, if anybody wants to reach out and wants any more help with that, please reach out to me. I'm very happy to set you on the right path if you're not really quite sure where to start with that. And that might be something that we could do as a bit of a 3 or 4 part series, Kylie. We might talk about each individual one, because each individual one has, you've got to look at them separately. They're different things, and how you form them, might go about it in a different way. So maybe we'll look at that sometime in the future. Some of the other things that I saw when I was looking at stuff was the during part. was helping your employees grow. So we're always very open to doing technical training. And of course, we've got to keep all of that up. And I think more than ever, people have been looking at what I call the people skills. So, you know, how do we train people in these people skills? Do we encourage networking? Do we, some of these things that can feel a bit icky and out of our comfort zones when it comes to some accountants, not all accountants, but some accountants, we can find this challenging. So how can we help our employees grow, and looking for opportunities to be able to do that? And one that struck me to be what seemingly on the surface was completely counterproductive was to help your employees prepare for future jobs. Now, I looked at that and went, why on earth would you want to help your employee prepare for a future job? But when I went away from that and thought about it, I thought, well, wow, if you're giving them skills and they're appreciating the skills and you're helping them to grow, there might be just a really good and higher chance that they'll stay. So I don't know what you think about that, but I looked at it and went, really? That's what we should be doing?
I actually agree with that. I think that we need to help our staff be the best that they can be.
Yes.
And, you know, everybody wants to grow and evolve. I really train my team not to look for that title, you know, next title, and we run a pretty flat structure here as a result of that. But it's more about learn the skills, you know, become capable, figure out what kind of accountant or whatever you want to be, and let's put actual stepping stones in place for achievement. And that's how you can really help somebody to personally develop. And I'll say right now, that's what people are looking for. You know, Linda, you sort of made a bit of a throwaway comment about we all do the technical training and that sort of thing. Not everybody has been provided that
is true
over the last few years, which is disappointing. And, you know, it's becoming easier and easier to provide. And I think that in itself is part of this employer of choice thing. If the staff member has to do all of their professional development outside the office hours, that makes it really hard. You know, I know myself with PD, I much prefer to do it in a group setting, because if I don't really agree or think, oh, is that right? Or how does that work? It's like, hang on, stop it. What's going on? Like, what does everyone else think about this? You know, like it's really good to do that in a collaborative fashion.
Absolutely.
So I think that is part of making that employee the best they can be technically, because we work in a really hard and difficult industry that's constantly evolving. But also, you called it people skills, you know, those people skills or those soft skills that everybody needs, they have to be learned by some people. Some people it comes so naturally. Other people it doesn't. The number of accountants that I have come across in my time that are actually scared to speak to clients is astonishing. You know, and I think, how do you get to 4 years in and not be confident to speak to clients? And it's because they haven't been properly developed.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think if we step back even a few steps behind all of this too, is knowing what is the career progression within your firm. So if we start out as a client services person in administration, is there anywhere for us to go? What does that look like? Where can we go? If we start out as a graduate, where can we go? If we start out as an intermediate or a senior, what does the career path look like? Now, that's not just all about title. It can be about the type of work you're doing, the type of clients that you're working with, what benefits you get as a result of that role. So if you've got no concept of what that is, and you have to think about that on the fly when you've got a candidate right in front of you, or you're trying to write a job ad or something, then that's not going to serve you well. That's just not setting yourself up for success. So I would be thinking about those sorts of things and mapping them out, because, and in all honesty, I know we're talking about retention next week effectively, but it's all about being fair to your existing staff. I know we've talked about new employees coming in, particularly at this time, Kylie, and them coming in at perhaps what seemingly is better remuneration, better, benefits that perhaps your existing staff don't have. And what do you do then? Because you've had to do that to attract them. So, you know, there's stuff to think about there, but definitely helping them be the best they can be, helping them prepare for future jobs. So future jobs might not mean a job outside of your organization. It can mean a job within your organization. So I think if you look at it like that, that's a very smart thing to be doing. And if you've done that, be loud and proud about that as well, right from the start. I know I've had many accounting partner look at me crazily when I've said, well, tell them they could make partner one day. And they've gone, what? I'm not telling them that, Linda. They'll get too big-headed about themselves. And it's like, no, they won't. That's just showing what the progression could be, because who knows who you're talking to or what they could turn out to be. It's not for everybody, but you just work with people along the way. So don't be afraid to put your cards on the table, I think. But first, do your research, understand what it is about your firm and where you want to go, and then talk about it. So I think that's pretty important. Giving honour where honour is due. So recognition. We mentioned that. I think you mentioned that in some of those employers of choice things before there, about giving recognition and appreciation. And some of the things just can be happening in the smallest of ways. Remembering to say thank you, remembering to say good morning and good evening, and, you know, those tiny little human behaviours that can make all the difference. Yes, you're bursting, Kylie. I can see that.
Good morning and goodbye. Like, again, something I think is the most normal thing ever. Like, you come into the office and you say good morning.
Yes.
Most people don't do it.
No.
It's even more important if you've got remote staff or people that are working from home that day.
Yes.
Say good morning to them. They're working too. You know,
Correct.
It's actually quite amazing the number of people that don't want to say good morning.
Yes.
I find it fascinating. It's so foreign to me because the same people that don't say good morning also want a really strong, friendly culture.
Yes.
So sometimes it's about, they don't connect, right? And sometimes it's about pointing out the obvious to people. Hey, we're really friendly and we like to, you know, we don't want to be besties, but we like to get along because we spend so much time at work together. What starts the day off well is saying good morning. And in fact, I saw on one of the accounting forums I was just reading this morning, while I was not logging on at the right time, and it said the first thing you say to someone in the morning sets the tone for your relationship with them that day. So right, like I've got a husband. I know how things go if I start in the morning on a not good note.
If you're hopping out of the bed on the wrong side, that's not a good start. No.
Exactly. So it's really interesting that sometimes you just have to point those obvious, or what are seemingly obvious to some of us, things that somebody else hasn't ever thought of before.
Correct. And I think everybody can lead the way in that. It's the small things that you do, whether you are the client services person, the graduate, the senior, the partner, the director. It does not matter. We all have an obligation to lead and be part of the culture that we want to see. So if nobody does anything, well, nothing's going to change. But if we want something to change, then we've got to be a part of that. So take some action, everybody. Start saying good morning, everybody, and we'll be interested to see just how your office environment picks up, an atmosphere picks up. So simple things. It can be very simple.
And that's probably my other point, Linda. When you make all of these lists, you have to actually, in the doing part, sometimes it's about, well, what actions actually support that? You know, you might say we're a really friendly workplace, or we really support this. You know, we support the charity day. So what are you doing as an employer to help staff take advantage of that? You know, not just go, oh, it's charity day, it's on you to figure out, let me know when you want it. What are you doing to support that? Are you looking for opportunities for people? Are you finding out what they like to do and then matching that skill set with a charity, you know, local charity? There's all these things that we still need to be doing as employers to support our staff in actually taking advantage of some of the awesome things that you're offering. Absolutely. And you've got to take a really good objective look
at what you are offering, because I have for many years when being asked to recruit, and the firm directors have said to me, well, we're flexible and family friendly. I'm like, are you really? Because every time,
what does that mean?
yes, because every time a working mother would ask to take, go away from work at 10 a.m. to go to the school assembly and to come back again and work extra hours in the afternoon, they got frowned upon. So that to me, is not family friendly. So just be very careful about living up to what you're saying you are.
And setting yourself up to be able, even if you strongly believe, and I'll use that example, there's a working parent that wants to go to the kids' athletics carnival in the middle of the day. Yes. Awesome. Guess what? Schools don't hold athletics carnivals outside the hours of 8:30 to 5, so that's going to happen. And they're so annoying like that, Linda, honestly. I've given the school my feedback. They just don't take it on. Yes. and really, you need to make sure that you're set up structure-wise to offer that. If you say you're family friendly, then, and that's a family activity that people may or may, grandparents want to go to it. Anyone in the office might want to go to that because it's part of their family. You need to make sure that you're set up. So if on that day people go, you're like, oh, hang on, there's no one left in the office. What's happened here? Or like literally no one. So you might have to put some restraints around that, where yes, we are family friendly, but you still need to apply for it like normal leave. It's just that it comes under this other heading, and we really only let 2 people go at the same time.
That's exactly
or whatever
right.
The story is.
Yes.
You have to be really upfront. You can't just make throwaway statements. So this is in the doing part. How is this that we want to offer going to work with our firm? And if you're a large firm, it's no difference, right? But if you're a small firm, and I'm talking 6 people or under, 2 or 3 people out of the office because all their kids happen to go to the same school because you live in the local area.
Yes.
Big deal.
That's a big deal. Yes, that's exactly right. And look, if you work in a small firm, there is many advantages to working in a small firm, and people that come and work in small firms understand some of those challenges. They get it. So they will work together, but you have to position it first. You've got to know what it is and be clear about it and be specific about it. And people will, well, I went last time, you go this time. They will work it out. We are all adults, and generally, often quite like, our team members. There's not many people hang around that they just dislike everybody on site, so we often do look quite accommodating when it comes to our team members and our team. So but you've got to structure it. You've got to decide what it is.
Yeah, and in this same ESC, and I know that we're sort of running out of time, it's like the flexible, go home, work from home on your laptop, that's fine. If you're in an office where you've got them set up with 3 screens or 4 screens or whatever, and then you send them home to work on their laptop, you need to really think, am I setting that employee up for success?
Yes.
You've just reduced their productivity 3 times because they've only got 1 screen. How are they going to do the same work? It's very frustrating for the employee sometimes just to work off 1 screen. It's frustrating that they've got to work from home. Like there's if that's not what they desire on that particular day, there's all these things that sometimes as employers we think, oh, look at us, we're being so flexible and chill and we're so helpful.
Yes.
When in reality, that's not okay.
Correct.
We need to think about that a lot. And this all comes with being an employer of choice. Employer of choice does not just stop with recruitment. Nope. It stops. Never. It
never stops. That's exactly right. This employer brand, this employer of choice just is always there. And one final thing in the doing or the during part, something that I found that was mentioned was that employees are looking for companies that are operating, so their operations themselves are ethical, sustainable, and have what they call this brand resonance. So again, that's exactly what we've been talking about. Is everything that we talk about of who we are, does it play out in action? And is it an ethical and sustainable way of doing business? And so that's what employees are looking for. They also mentioned quick decision making. Now, that can be something that we could see can be a little tricky in accounting firms sometimes, quick decision making, because we're such perfectionists. We're not quite sure where to start sometimes, that sometimes making a quick decision can be a bit tricky for us. But you run the risk of, we worry about getting it wrong. You know, if I don't take my time, I worry about getting it wrong. But you can run the risk of putting your employees or your team off and just going, creating that apathy in your culture that nothing gets done or nothing gets seen through. So I think you just got to, that was one of the things that got pointed out that employees are looking for these days.
They're looking for a lot.
They're looking for a lot.
Provide.
That's it. All right. I want to quickly, in our last few minutes, talk about the after bit. So in my after bit, when I was thinking about that, well, what happens after? So what about when an employee does get poached or does leave for another firm? What can you do then? So the first one, which, you know, after you finish stressing out and, you know, panicking about what you're going to do and how you're going to get your work done and where are you going to find somebody new, there's a lot of positive things that you can do. So I think the good old exit interview is one that you absolutely should be doing with everybody. When people are on the way out, that is the best chance of you getting 100% truth. They will tell you what they think, hopefully objectively and honestly. So it's about gathering information from that, asking the right questions. And if you Google that, there's plenty of great questions to ask. Maybe you could have an outside marketing person or somebody that's a step away from the firm to actually do that for you if it's uncomfortable for you. So there'd be plenty of people that you could, you know, get help to do that. But it's about learning. It's then about what can we do to make some changes and then taking some action about that if you believe that that is something that the whole firm could benefit from. Interesting, Kylie, when you were doing some of this research, you mentioned reflection and thinking about maybe some of the things you could do as well. Was there anything else in there, you know, like you're learning and thinking about maybe doing something different? Was there anything particularly you picked up?
In the list of stuff that I found, Linda?
Yeah.
I found it yes. When I next recruit on Seek, I'm going to put some more stuff on that we already
bigger
do.
And louder and prouder. Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I would never have thought to advertise that sort of stuff. So that's a great takeaway for me. I just want to make a comment on your after though. Yeah. When people leave, there's two really important things. Number one, don't take it personally. Correct. Sometimes it's harder to do than not, depending on the way they exit. But number two, remember this stuff that we're talking about, this employer of choice stuff. That does not stop when someone hands their resignation in, and it shouldn't stop for that person, and it shouldn't stop for the rest of your team. So how you handle that exit really impacts the other staff and really shows them, then is your time to shine with all of these things. So if you're marketing yourself as, you know, friendly and strong office culture and, you know, blah, 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 you have to still provide those things after the resignation letter comes. We're seeing a lot of movement. I know there's a lot of employers out there that are exceptionally frustrated with the movement because there's genuinely nothing wrong with your firm. It's just that they want to change. You have to just accept that you can't change that and really focus even more on the people that are there and willing to work for you.
Absolutely. So this morning we've talked about how to create a powerful employer brand to become the employer of choice. That it was all about, firstly, looking at what some in the market considered employers of choice are doing. And we found that we're probably doing a lot of those things. We're just not being loud and proud about them. So thinking about how we be loud and proud about that, don't underestimate your socials with this as well. You know, that you can put that out there. Any employer that's looking, any employee that perhaps is looking at a role with someone else is going to be scrolling through your socials. That's the place they're going to start. So think about what you can do to maybe be a little more loud and proud about things. Get some marketing people to help you with the words. They're great at this stuff. Maybe it's not you that should be trying to write it. It'll be the best $500 or $1,000 that you spend, in getting that right. But first, you've got to decide what is it that we what is it that we want to be? What are our values? What are our vision? What are our missions? And what is our ideal candidate? Look at that. Then you can talk to your ideal candidate when you're trying to find them. Say the things that will attract them. So there's a lot that can be done there. Make sure we're delivering on everything we said we were going to be. Make sure we're living up to that. We're taking the action. We're living and breathing everything that we said we were going to do, helping our employees grow, giving honour where honour is due, or appreciation and recognition. And, of course, making sure that we're conducting business in an ethical and sustainable way that is resonating throughout everything that we do. And, of course, afterwards, if you do lose an employee, there's been some great tips from Kylie about how to handle that on the way out. And some days it's harder than others, but as a leader, you will pick yourself up and you will go and you will do those things for the benefit of you, your business, your team, and overall. I make a point of congratulating an employee on a resignation letter. I congratulate them first and then tell them how much I will miss them. Even though that's not my first reaction, my head is going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But the words that come out of my mouth are different to that. So it can take a little bit of, it can be a challenge. But if you just stop and think for a minute, you'll handle that much better. Kylie, any points that you wanted to really bring home there with our discussion this morning? That's a great discussion, by the way.
I think don't put this in the too hard basket. It's not about reinventing yourself. It's about reviewing what you're already doing. Yes. I know employees get treated pretty well in our industry, partly because they demand me and partly because as advisors, we want to help people. We spend a lot of time helping our clients and thinking about our clients. And in turn, we do that with our staff as well. So please don't put this in the too hard basket. I think it's a win-win for everyone. Happy employees make better accountants, and better accountants means your clients.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a free-for-all. Like, it's not give on your behalf. It's just structure it, define it, be comfortable with what you are willing to give, and everybody will appreciate that. You're right, Kylie. It's something that you can do that just needs a bit of refining. I love that. Okay, next week, you ready for the topic?
Ready.
Okay, Wednesday, 21st of September, we'll be back and we'll be talking about another following on from this, really. Are your staff a flight risk? 11 things leaders do that make employees quit. I'll
start keeping my list now then. I'll talk for the hour. It's fine.
You can start your research right now. All right. So there's plenty of things that we can learn from that topic. Like I said, who knows where our discussions can go. It's always a surprise, even to both Kylie and I. So please join us next week. We'd love to see you. We hope you have a wonderful day and a great week. And thanks for tuning in this morning. Thank you, Kylie, as always.
Thanks, Linda. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.